Welcome to Today in Space. I am, as always, your space science podcast host from the East Coast, Alex Giorfanos. And in one of the first episodes here in 2025, we're talking about just that, what to expect in 2025 from space. And for us, it's all about human progress. So we're going to tell you what to look for this year and really where we think the focus is going to be for 2025. So without further ado, let's get started. Happy New Year. Welcome to Today in Space. Welcome to the podcast, space people. It's 2025, and we're talking about the big focus that we see for this year, which is human space progress. So many of the things we're going to talk about this week are coming from different angles, different aspects of the space industry that are going to build, we think, together this year to lead us into a really incredible amount of progress going into 2026 and beyond. But before we get started with that, make sure to follow us online, Today in Space Pod on Instagram and Twitter, Today in Space on TikTok, and Today in Space Podcast on Facebook. You can always email us at todayinspacepodcast@gmail.com if you want to have us cover anything here on the podcast, or if you've got questions, or if you've got something that you'd like to reach out to us about, hit us up everywhere. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you can get all the notifications moving forward. And don't forget to check out our 3D printing lab, ag3d-printing.com, where you can check out all the projects that we're doing. We also have our YouTube page, AG3D Printing, and of course our Instagram page at AG3D Printing. We've got a lot of projects lined up for the year, so make sure to follow us there so that you can get the best out of everything that's coming out of the lab and the part detective. But we'll talk more about that later. To begin, we need to talk about probably where most of the progress is going to come from, which is SpaceX's Starship. Now, we've done plenty of episodes where we've broken down what Starship is, so if you're looking for that, go check that out here. And on older episodes, they'll be pretty clear on what they are. We've done some recently on the latest Starships, and we've done one on each of the flight tests that we've seen in the last few years. In the last year, we saw 4 flights, 6 in total, and the 7th flight test may come out before this episode is even out. So we'll have more to cover on that. But basically, Starship and SpaceX are at full production capability, or the fullest we've seen it in a long time. And the fact that they're using stainless steel as the material for the rocket instead of really complex composites, carbon fiber and things like that, which are great for lightweight structures, but take a long time to make and make sure that they're safe to use and that they were made correctly. And then, of course, things like aluminum and titanium and other things that are very expensive and very hard to manufacture. Stainless steel is something that's really workable and easy to go in and out. So if you've been following along on places like NASA Spaceflight or other people who are following along like everyone else down in Texas covering all that stuff, there's a lot going on, and they are pumping out these Starships to the point where we have multiple Starships in various stages ready for them to go forward. So 2025 is going to be the year where we see SpaceX really unleash their full capability, and they're going to be able to turn around stuff very quickly. So if we saw 4 this year, I expect us to see probably double that, if not more, if they start getting a good cadence and the FAA and them work well to get those licenses out in time. Progress to look forward to this year, in my mind, is we're going to see a lot of tower catches. And there could be the potential where one launch has 2 Starships on 2 different pads to really capture what is going to be the future of Starship. And that's going to be really incredible. If we get to see a Starship taking off from one pad while at the pad next door we have a fully stacked Starship ready for the next launch, that's going to be really, really amazing. But the big hurdle that SpaceX needs to get over is that Starship, if it's going to do these big trips to the moon and to Mars, they need to launch Starship and then fuel it fully in orbit, which means 2025 is going to be the big year of orbital refueling testing. And so we're going to find out just how efficient that refueling actually is, and if the tanker variants of Starship, the ones that will be filling up Starship's fuel in orbit, if they have any peculiar issues or if they run into any issues with just Starship in general. But either way, this is going to be a big year for Starship and a big data year for SpaceX. And that's going to help build confidence in the flight cadence, the safety, re-entry, and landing automation, because just like the space shuttle, there is no abort. This thing needs to be flawless. And, if we had been able to test the space shuttle as many times as we're going to test Starship, we may have had a different future for the space shuttle. But regardless, this is new technology. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be a big year for that. And when we've got the new year coming up and everyone's talking about, New Year's resolutions and what are you doing this year? How are you going to prep to fix the thing that you weren't happy with at the end of last year? And we all go through that, right? For us, we have been really focused on being able to do this podcast, bring the best show possible, produce as much content as possible, and just, I don't want to say optimize, but really just make it so that what we're doing here, we've got the most creative output as possible that's good for our soul at the same time, right? Because that's when we bring the best content. In the last year, there's definitely some things that I would like to improve, but the core of it all is making sure that my mind and my body are doing great. And so doing things and structuring all of this stuff that we're doing, including our day job and our life and our social time, it's all about making sure that they are congruent. They're all good together. And so that's looking out for my mental health. And I think that's on a lot of our lists this year, no doubt. And for us, mental wealth is where we're at the next step. We've really done a lot of work to get to a good place. We do a lot of different things on top of eating well, but also working out and adding things in like coffee to keep me going, including Magic Mind, making sure that we stay even with all the things that require so much mental capacity. And for mental wealth, adding in that extra to compensate for the caffeine and keep me streamlined is huge. So, we've been working with Magic Mind, and they sent me over this sample to try out the 15 days of the Magic Mind, and it's been great working with them. For us, keeping on point with the mental is huge. So if you're interested, get 45% off the Magic Mind bundle with my link, magicmind.com/spacejan, and give it a shot. The Magic Mind productivity shot is great for the day. They also have the Magic Mind sleep, which I haven't tried yet, but the realization that you come to when you're dealing with mental health or mental wealth is that you're gonna get beat down. That is life. That's how it is. It's about being human. Actually giving yourself the things you need so that you're more spry. You pick yourself back up. You keep going and fighting. Mental wealth is about being more able to pick yourself back up, having the tools and the tricks to do that. magicmind.com/spacejan. Get 45% off the Magic Mind bundle. Start taking care of yourself, because your mind and your body, that's all you got. We don't live in artificial androids yet. While we're still humans, while we still have all our faculties here, take care of your mental and find some wealth with that. So go check it out. Because we know the SpaceX team is going to need all the help that they need. They're going to be working hard, but they're not the only ones that are going to be out there making progress in human spaceflight. We're entering this new stage with NASA and human spaceflight, where NASA, thanks to the Crew Dragon from SpaceX that was purchased through and developed through the Commercial Crew Program. The Boeing Starliner was the other half of that. But Crew Dragon is fully operational, and that is helping NASA not only keep the space station fully staffed with human beings, it's also great that they have the reusable Crew Dragon in their fleet, right? They've got extras that they could do that. We saw that in 2024, where a Crew Dragon changed its plan. The crew of 4 was cut down to 2 to save 2 spots open for Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore. So those 2 astronauts didn't go home on the Starliner, and they will be going home on the Crew Dragon. That only happened because we had the reusable Space Dragon at the ready. But that's good. That means NASA is able to be more strategic, right? And it gave the Boeing team the time that they needed, because NASA was confident that there was a backup plan at some point, right? They had the Crew Dragon as an option. They didn't want to use it, but they had it as an option, which is huge. And it is really great in that NASA doesn't have to make hasty, last-minute decisions, which has not gone well for us in the past in the Space Shuttle program. And honestly, we don't ever want to get back to that point. In that part, it is great. But it's also really tough for the astronauts that were kicked off of that launch and may happen in the future, right? They got pushed off to the side, unfortunately, to make room, right? It's the honorable thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Those human beings need to come back home. But in the world pre-commercial crew, it was a very long time before you could get back up into space. And for a lot of astronauts, including Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, they didn't know if they'd ever go back to space. And so these two astronauts that were bumped off of this mission, while it sucks that happened, and it may be a long time before they do, this year of human space progress, and who knows, maybe we'll see Starliner go back to the space station. There's also the spaceplane Tenacity from Sierra Nevada that is going to be making its maiden flight, I believe, here in 2025, but that's been working for a long time. The fact that we have all these new spacecraft that are going to send humans up, I think it's going to give these astronauts more opportunity to get back to space, and then that way they don't spend their whole career training and never see space. That's one of the great things about this commercial crew program, is the amount of progress that we're able to take with that in the private sector, working with NASA or for NASA as a contractor, can really open up the ability of astronauts, professional astronauts, going to space. So we're looking to see a lot more strategy from NASA and potentially more NASA astronauts getting to space than we've ever had in even modern times in a single year. We're also looking at a lot more human space flights to the edge of space and back to the Kármán line, right? We've got two companies that are doing that. Virgin Galactic with their new Delta class of their spaceships. We're going to see that enter the arena here in 2025. And Blue Origin with their new Shepard flights. And then their new Glenn, which should be launching here at the beginning. Again, by the time this episode is out, it may have already launched, but we're excited to see that because eventually as far as we understand it, New Glenn will help bring up their space station, right? Orbital Reef, right? And all these new private space stations, New Glenn being a heavy lift rocket, can bring things up into space like that. So New Glenn will definitely help enable human space progress, even if it is secondary in that it's building the space station that they'll go up into and that not necessarily humans are on board. But that could change. We just got to see the first flight from them, from Blue Origin. So good luck to them getting that done. I know a lot of people are waiting on that. And then as far as human space progress in general, we also have NASA Artemis. NASA Artemis, for those that don't know, is NASA's new mission outline architecture of the future of how humans are going to spend and work and live in space long term, setting up all of that so that people can do that and that NASA can do this on the regular. It's obviously, if you've been following along at all, it's obviously been controversial in a lot of different ways, but the thing that is going to be very controversial at some point here will be once Jared Isaacman is officially appointed the administrator, assuming that nobody else, he isn't denied and somebody else comes in. We've talked about at length how Jared Isaacman could help form the future of NASA and the American space program. We may get some clarity on NASA Artemis and what happens with the Space Launch System, which is NASA's built rocket system to send the Orion spacecraft to the moon for the first time with Artemis 2. Unfortunately, Artemis 2 is already delayed due to the Orion heat shield issue. The heat shield had larger than expected chunks out of the heat shield, and so there's an investigation happening, and then something has to be implemented to fix that. And so Artemis 2 is most likely not happening in 2025 unless something crazy happens. So unfortunately, we go another year without the Artemis 2 crew orbiting the moon for the first time, having the first African-American and first woman orbiting the moon. We'll have to wait, unfortunately, another year. But we don't want these astronauts to have the risk of losing their life, so we do get it. But we may find out more from what happens with SLS. I don't know. Nobody knows at this point. Jared is definitely on the commercial side of things. He has purchased missions for Polaris Dawn. We're going to see the next Polaris mission potentially. The Polaris Dawn documentary is coming up. So there's a lot to get excited about in 2025 and prepping for what's to come later on. And as far as my predictions, right, there's going to be definitely a few different things happening here, a lot to look forward to, not just in the American space program, but around the world. We've got NASA's human space program. There's a lot of great progress happening from a lot of different areas. There's going to be a lot of SLS progress. There's going to be hopefully a lot of Orion progress, but also Starship is going to make big headway. I see double the launch rate from SpaceX, given how many Starships they already have built. Assuming they don't blow up a pad in the early part of this year, I do think we're going to see as many as 8 launches for Starship. So that's going to be very exciting. And we're going to need that for orbital. In order to fill Starship fully, we need multiple Starship going to orbit. So that is going to be where they're heading. So whether it's 8 this year or very close into the year after in 2026, it's going to be a lot of Starship. I think Roscosmos, Russia's space program, is going to see some delays and find itself in more political situations. I don't know how it won't. But again, the fact that America has its own launch capability of sending its own humans into space is going to be huge. I hope that the ISS and the partnership between U.S. and Russia and all the other countries continues. The U.S. and Russia particularly, because they own different parts of the space station. But it's not impossible that if tensions get too bad, that the space station, the different halves of the space station, the Russian side and the U.S. side, detach, and the space station no longer stays together. But I'm pretty sure that won't happen this year. So fingers crossed that doesn't, but anything is possible these days. I think India is going to make big headway in its space program. They were already testing the docking ability for their first space station, which is what they're hoping to send up. And that would be big. India is a young space program as far as their progress and the people that are working there. And they have landed successfully on the moon. They're one of the few countries that has actually successfully done so. So for them, that's going to come very soon. China is also going to be making its run to the moon. It has a little bit longer before they have human beings step foot, but they have a space station that has humans on board. They're already doing that, and so I expect China to continue to push that capability and maybe have their human beings do more in space. But as far as how that's going to turn out, I'm not quite sure. But all we know is that there's going to be a lot of space progress. So we're really looking forward to that. And we hope you are too. So that's it, folks. That's what we see for human space progress and the focus of 2025 and what to look for. Look out for that Polaris Dawn documentary. I'm sure that's going to be fantastic. We know that the Inspiration 4 documentary on Netflix was amazing. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when Jared Isaacman becomes the new administrator at NASA, how things shake up, how many relationships are made, and to see how well Jared does in a political position like the head of NASA. I'm sure I would not want to do that job. So let's put it that way. And I've read enough in books and people who have worked either in that role or in a role very close to that role as head of NASA. And it does not sound like fun. It sounds like politics. So best of luck to them. And hopefully we just continue the momentum through that we've had from the last few administrations that have been pro-space, and that we don't have to do this big flip-flop and have to completely start from scratch again with a space program. Let's not do that anymore, please. So that's it, folks. We've got the next Starship launch, IFT-7. We've got the maiden launch of New Glenn, and eventually we shall see Sierra Nevada's space plan Tenacity finally get to orbit and to see like a mini space shuttle type spacecraft. I've been watching the development of that and excited for that to launch since I was a young aerospace engineer, so it's going to be fun. But that's it, folks. Thank you for joining us for Today in Space. Welcome to 2025, and we're looking forward to sharing more of that together with you. Make sure to follow us on Today in Space Pod on Instagram and Twitter, Today in Space on TikTok, and Today in Space Podcast on Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are going to be introducing a stargazing night We have our telescope, our Vespera, our smart telescope from Vaonis that we use on a regular basis, constantly looking at the skies, and we're looking to stream that with you so we can hang out while we're checking out what's happening in the universe around us, and we're doing these long exposure shots, so you'll be able to see how we're getting light from the universe into a camera and capturing it, and we'll just hang out. We'll talk about big topics, literally anything. If you hit us up in the chat, I mean, we could talk about anything, but we definitely like talking about big topics, things that are happening in space, but also philosophy, what it is to be a human. Just when you're looking at the universe, it's hard not to think about that stuff. So make sure to follow us everywhere on social media. We'll be going live soon here at the beginning of the year. And then, of course, our 3D printing lab, AG3D Printing, where you can follow us online, TikTok, AG3D Printing Labs, AG3D Printing on TikTok, AG3D-Printing is our website, and then we have our Etsy store, ag3dprinting.etsy.com, where you can find amazing things, just like our full-color 3D printed James Webb Space Telescope. This is going to be available on the store right now. It's got a magnetic stand, and so you can take it off, show it around, have people take a look at it. It's great for anyone who's young and interested in space. It would make a great gift for them, but also for any space nerd. If you love James Webb Space Telescope and you loved Hubble and you just love these pieces of technology that show us what the universe has out there, it's really awesome. So this would make a great gift. Go check that out, ag3dprinting.etsy.com for that and other 3D printing gifts. And then the Part Detective, where you can use our services. You can email us at ag3dpartdetective@gmail.com with your 3D printing challenge. We have spent basically a decade at this point running 3D printers, making 3D printed parts for people. We have our 3D printed products on our Etsy shop, and we also have worked in 3D printing, right? We help people with industrial 3D printers when things aren't working well and we've got to fix them. So I have a lot of experience in making parts, right? That's what our thing is here with the 3D print, with the Part Detective. We're here to help you get back to making parts. So if your part is a mystery, you just can't figure out why you can't get it right, reach out to us, ag3d-printing.com. You can book an appointment with us, 30 minutes, right there on the website, but email us first. Let's get the conversation started first. It doesn't cost anything to start a conversation. We can help point you in the right direction and focus our time in that 30 minutes so that you get the most out of it. So ag3d-printing.com. Bring us your 3D printing mysteries and challenges so we can solve them. And then check out our blog at ag3d-printing.com for the case files. That's going to be where we break down in our blog exactly what we're doing, what challenges we faced in printing this part or during a project, and how we solved it. And we're going to go through all of our closed cases and even introduce new ones that we haven't figured out the answer to. That's what it's all about. We love the challenge of solving those. And we've got our YouTube page, AG3D Printing, as well, where you'll be able to check out our projects in motion while we're working on them. We'll show you the prototypes. We'll share our ideas and our thoughts behind what we did, why we did it. And you can learn 3D printing along the way. So that's it, folks. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025. Let's make it a good one together. Spread love, spread science. And don't forget to get your Magic Mind bundle 45% off by using the code SPACEJAN at checkout, magicmind.com/space, 45% off the Magic Mind bundle, and get focused on your mental wealth. That's it, folks. Spread love and spread science. We'll see you next time.